everything we thought about Yellowstone 1944 was only the beginning. After months of silence, surprising new updates are finally giving fans hope that this long-awaited chapter is moving forward. But the biggest surprise is not just when the series could arrive. It's the story that may connect 1923, Yellowstone, and the next generation of the Dutton family in a way we have never seen before. If these latest clues turn out to be true, Yellowstone 1944 could become one of the most emotional and important chapters in the entire franchise. So stay with me, because every new detail brings us closer to understanding what Taylor Sheridan may have planned. For a long time, Yellowstone 1944 remained one of the biggest mysteries in the entire Yellowstone universe. While new spin-offs continued to receive announcements, casting news, filming updates, and release windows, this series seemed to disappear into complete silence. Fans who had been excited when the project was first mentioned slowly began wondering whether Paramount had quietly abandoned it. Every few months, another Yellowstone project would make headlines, but 1944 remained missing from the conversation. That silence naturally created many questions. Was the show still happening? Had Taylor Sheridan changed his plans? Or was the project simply waiting for the right moment? Now, after such a long period without meaningful news, things finally appear to be changing. Recent reports suggest that Yellowstone 1944 is still moving through development, giving fans fresh hope that this chapter of the Dutton family story has not been forgotten. While Paramount has not officially revealed a full production schedule, the fact that reliable industry sources continue to mention the project is an encouraging sign. It tells us that the series is still part of the studio's long-term vision for expanding the Yellowstone universe. What makes this update even more exciting is where this story fits within the Dutton timeline. Unlike previous prequels, 1944 takes place during one of the most difficult periods in American history. World War II was reaching its final stages. Families across the country were dealing with uncertainty, and thousands of young men were serving overseas. The Dutton family has never lived separate from history. Every generation has faced challenges that shaped not only the ranch, but also the people who fought to protect it. That is exactly why 1944 feels like the perfect setting for another powerful chapter. If we look back at the earlier Yellowstone stories, war has always played an important role in shaping major characters. Spencer Dutton returned from World War I carrying emotional wounds that stayed with him for the rest of his life. His experiences changed the way he viewed family, responsibility, and survival. Later in the timeline, John Dutton III served during the Vietnam War, while Case Dutton became a Navy SEAL whose military experience continued to affect his personal life. Taylor Sheridan has repeatedly shown that service and sacrifice are part of the Dutton legacy. Because of that, it would make complete sense for Yellowstone 1944 to continue exploring those themes through a new generation. One possibility that many fans continue discussing is the future of Spencer Dutton's family. By 1944, enough years have passed for Spencer's son to be a young adult. If the timeline established in 1923 remains consistent, he could easily be old enough to serve during World War II. That single idea creates enormous emotional potential. Spencer knows better than almost anyone what war can do to a person. He survived impossible situations, witnessed terrible violence, and spent years trying to rebuild his life after returning home. Now imagine him watching his own son prepare to leave for another global conflict. The emotional weight of that relationship could become one of the strongest stories the Yellowstone franchise has ever told. Instead of following a young soldier learning about war for the first time, Sheridan could also explore the perspective of a father who already understands every danger waiting ahead. Spencer would know the fear that families experience while waiting for letters from overseas. He would recognize the emotional scars that many soldiers hide after returning home. More importantly, he would understand that some battles never truly end. Even after the fighting stops, the memories continue for years. Those experiences could shape every conversation between Spencer and his son, making their relationship one of the emotional foundations of the entire series. At the same time, life on the Yellowstone Ranch would almost certainly become more difficult. During the war years, many ranches across America struggled with labor shortages because so many young men had joined the military. Supplies became harder to find, equipment was limited, and families often had to work longer hours simply to keep their land alive. The Dutton Ranch would likely face those same pressures. Protecting Yellowstone has never been easy, but during wartime, the challenges would become even greater. Outside threats would still exist. Neighboring landowners could continue looking for opportunities, and difficult financial decisions might force the family to make painful sacrifices. Another interesting question involves leadership. By 1944, Spencer would no longer be the adventurous young man who crossed Africa searching for a way back home. Years of responsibility would have transformed him into someone very different. Losing Alexandra changed his life forever, and decades spent protecting Yellowstone would only deepen his sense of duty. Instead of chasing danger, he would now be responsible for preparing the next generation to defend the family's future. That transition from fearless adventurer to experienced family leader could become one of the most fascinating character journeys in the entire Yellowstone timeline. What also makes Yellowstone 1944 so exciting is that it has the opportunity to bridge two different eras of the franchise. Earlier prequels introduced us to the family's struggle to establish Yellowstone, while the original series focused on preserving it against modern threats. But 1944 stands directly in the middle of those stories. It represents the generation responsible for carrying everything forward. The decisions made during these years could explain how the ranch survived decades of political pressure, economic hardship, and changing America before eventually reaching the events of Yellowstone. Every sacrifice made in 1944 could echo through the lives of future Duttons. And that may be the biggest reason why fans continue waiting so patiently. This series is not simply another prequel. It has the potential to answer questions that have existed for years while introducing entirely new members of the Dutton family. Every update brings new possibilities, and every possibility makes the future of Yellowstone 1944 even more exciting. If these recent reports are accurate, the long silence may finally be coming to an end, and the next chapter of the Dutton legacy could be closer than anyone expected. Now that Yellowstone 1944 appears to be moving forward again, one question has become more important than any other. Who will stand at the center of this story? While Paramount has not officially revealed the main cast or confirmed which members of the Dutton family will lead the series, the timeline gives us several fascinating possibilities. And if we carefully connect everything established in 1923 with what we already know from Yellowstone, one character continues to stand above the rest: Spencer Dutton. The ending of 1923 completely changed Spencer's future. After surviving war, dangerous journeys across multiple continents, and countless life-threatening situations, he finally returned home to Montana. But his victory came with an unimaginable loss. Alexandra died shortly after giving birth to their son, leaving Spencer to raise their child while carrying the grief of losing the woman he loved. That heartbreaking ending shaped the rest of his life. Instead of enjoying the peaceful future they dreamed about together, Spencer spent the following decades protecting the ranch while living with memories that never truly faded. By the time the story reaches 1944, more than 20 years have passed. Spencer would no longer be the fearless young hunter fans first met in Africa. He would be an older man with decades of experience leading the ranch through difficult times. Years of responsibility would have changed him both physically and emotionally. The confidence would still be there, but it would now come from wisdom instead of youthful adventure. Every decision he makes would carry the weight of experience, and every lesson he teaches the next generation would be built upon everything he survived. One of the biggest reasons fans hope Spencer returns is because his story still feels unfinished. Although 1923 gave him a powerful ending, it also left many questions unanswered. How did he rebuild Yellowstone after Jacob and Kara? What kind of father did he become? How did he prepare his son for adulthood? And perhaps most importantly, how did he continue living after losing Alexandra? Those are questions that only Yellowstone 1944 can truly answer. If Spencer does return, the emotional heart of the series may not come from his own battles, but from watching his son face challenges that remind him of his own past. Based on the timeline, Spencer's son would likely be in his early 20s during World War II. That places him at exactly the right age to join the military. Suddenly, history begins repeating itself. Years earlier, Spencer left home to fight in one world war. Now, another generation of the family may be preparing to do exactly the same. Imagine the emotional conflict this creates. Spencer understands war better than almost anyone. He knows that courage often comes with terrible consequences. He knows that some people never return home, while others come back forever changed. As a father, he may desperately want to protect his son from those dangers. But as someone who understands duty, honor, and sacrifice, he may also know that he cannot stop him from serving. That internal struggle could become one of the most powerful emotional storylines in the Yellowstone universe. At the same time, the Yellowstone Ranch itself would still demand Spencer's attention every single day. Running one of the largest ranches in Montana has never been simple. During wartime, those responsibilities become even more difficult. Workers leave to join the military, supplies become limited, and every decision carries greater risk. Spencer may find himself balancing two impossible responsibilities: protecting the ranch at home while worrying about his son's safety overseas. But Spencer may not be the only important member of the family during this period. Another name that continues appearing in fan discussions is John Dutton II. Long before the events of the original Yellowstone, John Dutton II became one of the most important links between the older and newer generations of the family. As the future father of John Dutton III, his story carries enormous importance. If Sheridan chooses to focus on him, viewers could finally witness how another generation learned what it truly meant to carry the Dutton name. Unlike Spencer, who earned his reputation through extraordinary adventures, John Dutton II may represent something different. He could be the character responsible for learning how to protect the family's legacy through leadership rather than survival. Growing up under Spencer's guidance would shape the kind of man he eventually becomes. Every lesson about loyalty, sacrifice, and family responsibility could explain why later generations continued fighting to preserve Yellowstone no matter the cost. There is also another possibility that could make the series even richer. Instead of focusing entirely on one main character, Taylor Sheridan could divide the story between multiple generations of the Dutton family. Spencer could represent experience and wisdom, while younger family members represent hope and the future. This approach would allow viewers to experience both sides of history at the same time. Older characters would carry memories of the past, while younger characters would struggle to build the future. This storytelling style has already worked extremely well throughout the Yellowstone franchise. Sheridan often places experienced family members beside younger relatives who must learn difficult lessons through real-life challenges. Those relationships create emotional depth because every generation views the world differently. Older characters want to protect what they built, while younger characters must decide whether they are ready to accept that responsibility. Family conflict may also become an important part of the story. Every generation of Duttons has faced difficult choices that tested their loyalty. Sometimes protecting Yellowstone required painful sacrifices. Sometimes family members disagreed about the future. In 1944, those disagreements could become even more serious as war changes priorities both inside and outside the ranch. Some family members may believe they should focus entirely on protecting their land, while others may feel called to serve their country. Those competing responsibilities could create emotional tension throughout the season. And then there is the larger question surrounding the Yellowstone legacy itself. Every prequel has shown that owning the ranch has always come with a heavy price. Each generation inherits not only the land, but also the burdens left behind by those who came before them. By 1944, Spencer would understand that better than anyone. His greatest challenge may no longer be surviving danger himself. Instead, it may be preparing the next generation to face dangers he can no longer fight for them. If that becomes the central theme of the series, Yellowstone 1944 could deliver one of the deepest family stories Taylor Sheridan has ever written. Rather than focusing only on action or historical events, it could explore the emotional cost of passing a legacy from one generation to the next. And if the recent reports are accurate, fans may not have to wait much longer before learning exactly which members of the Dutton family will lead this long-awaited chapter. As exciting as Spencer Dutton's possible return is, there is another mystery that could completely change the direction of Yellowstone 1944. What if the series is not only about the people we already know, but also about the next generation that will eventually shape the future of the Yellowstone Ranch? This is where the timeline becomes incredibly important, because 1944 sits at the perfect point between the events of 1923 and the original Yellowstone. It gives Taylor Sheridan a chance to connect both stories in ways fans have been waiting to see for years. One of the biggest unanswered questions involves the children of the Dutton family. By the time 1944 begins, many of them would be old enough to carry real responsibility. They would no longer be children living under the protection of older family members. Instead, they would become the men and women expected to defend the ranch during one of the most challenging periods in American history. If Spencer's son becomes one of the leading characters, his story could be very different from his father's. Spencer fought in World War I after growing up in a different world. His son, however, would have been raised on the Yellowstone Ranch by a father who already understood the true cost of war. That alone could create a fascinating contrast. Spencer may spend years teaching him how to survive, how to protect the family, and how to value life. But despite those lessons, history may still pull him toward the battlefield. That situation creates an emotional conflict that feels perfectly suited to the Yellowstone universe. Every father wants to keep his child safe, but some moments in history make that impossible. Spencer could know exactly what his son is about to face, yet still be powerless to stop it. Those quiet, emotional moments between father and son could become some of the strongest scenes in the entire series. At the same time, life on the Yellowstone Ranch would not simply pause because the world is at war. The land still needs protection. The cattle still need care. The ranch still faces financial pressure, harsh weather, and outside threats. Throughout every Yellowstone story, the ranch itself has almost felt like another member of the family. It demands sacrifice from every generation, and 1944 would likely continue that tradition. Another character who could finally receive a much larger role is Elizabeth. When viewers last saw her in 1923, she left Montana while expecting a child. Although her departure closed one chapter of her story, it never truly answered what happened next. Because of that, many fans believe Yellowstone 1944 could finally reveal the future she built after leaving the ranch. If Elizabeth returns years later with her son, the emotional impact could be enormous. She would not simply be returning home. She would be bringing back another branch of the Dutton family that has remained almost completely unknown. Imagine family members meeting relatives they have never truly known, while old memories, regrets, and unfinished relationships begin to resurface. Sheridan has always written family reunions with powerful emotional weight, and this could become one of the series' most memorable storylines. Her son's arrival could also introduce new questions about inheritance, loyalty, and the future leadership of Yellowstone. Every generation has struggled with who should carry the family's responsibility forward. Adding another possible heir would naturally create new tension inside the family without needing traditional villains. Sometimes the greatest conflicts come from people who all want the same thing, but disagree on how to protect it. Beyond the family itself, the outside world would also be changing rapidly. America in 1944 looked very different from the country viewers saw in 1883 or 1923. Technology was improving, transportation was expanding, and communities across the West were beginning to modernize. Those changes could slowly begin reaching Montana, bringing new opportunities while also creating new risks for ranch owners. The Dutton family has always resisted outside forces trying to reshape their way of life. Whether those threats came from powerful businessmen, politicians, developers, or neighboring landowners, every generation has been forced to defend Yellowstone against people who viewed the ranch as an opportunity instead of a legacy. Yellowstone 1944 could continue that tradition by introducing individuals who see the changing world as a chance to challenge the Dutton family's control over their land. At the same time, wartime could make those threats even more dangerous. With many young men serving overseas, local communities would have fewer people available to protect businesses, farms, and ranches. That could encourage ambitious rivals to make bold moves while the Dutton family is already stretched thin. Spencer may find himself fighting a completely different kind of battle than the one he experienced during his younger years. Instead of facing enemies on distant battlefields, he may now be forced to defend Yellowstone through strategy, leadership, and difficult decisions.